Cool.
Yep, recording.
Okie dokie. Hi, everybody. Whoa, the sun is in my face. Okay. So first of all, nice to hear you. Nice to see you. Just to let you know, I've made someone else the host of this call. So he may mute you if he hears that there is background noise coming. At the moment, I think it's good. Whoever hasn't been to one of these lectures before, my name is Rabbi Newfield. I think I know most people here, but I don't know everybody. So whoever I don't know, especially nice to meet you on Zoom, if you can call that a meeting. People who are more regulars, nice to see you. The world continues into a summer in the Southern Hemisphere. Baruch Hashem, thank the Lord. Not that it has been a difficult winter. It has been an amazing winter, at least from where I'm coming from. Hearing, I heard that Cape Town's got a terrible winter. Not true. Okay, at least this year it was very, very nice. Pleasant, except for the days that I almost got blown away. But other than that, it was fantastic. Today we're not going to be talking about wind. We're going to talk about something a lot more interesting than wind, which is light. But before we even start that, I'd just like to give credit where credit is due. So first of all, I looked at two articles. There were a few articles that I looked at about this, but the two main ones that I'm basing stuff on is Dr. Rabbi Tzvi Farber, who I believe is a professor at Bar-Ilan University. And the other one is Nathan Aviezer. Paul, can you just mute it? Or maybe I can mute everyone. I'm just hearing stuff. Just mute them again, Paul. Okay. Cool. Okay, so those are the two people. Nathan Aviezer, he also wrote an article called When Torah and Science Collide, and I used some of his stuff that he wrote there as well. Can I just ask, whoever's talking, please mute yourself, because everyone can hear what you're saying.
Oops.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sorry, I've muted you. Can you?
Don't worry.
Yep.
Don't worry. Technology, we're learning technology. We're learning technology. That's okay. Okay, and this is actually talking about, somewhat about technology. It's not so much technology, but it's about science today. First of all, we're just starting in the Torah, Bereshit. The first book of the Torah, the first portion of the Torah, theoretically, if shuls were open, would be this weekend.
Internet.
This Shabbat, we'd be reading the beginning.
Press start video. Press that.
Paul, just mute them.
I'm doing it. I've got to find him.
Oh, okay, fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Okay. Everyone just take a breather. Breathe in, breathe out. It's the beginning of the universe. Why is it important, or is it important to study the origins of the universe? Some people would argue, I've met people on this earth who would argue, you're wasting your time. You'll never know where life comes from, where the world comes from, where the universe comes from. It's just a waste of energy, a waste of time. Don't even bother. Obviously, you get people who are the other side of the fence who actually end up becoming, astronomers or physicists or, cosmologists or something like that. They see a lot of interest in those things. What about the regular Joe? Me, you, I don't know what's the expression, the feminine expression, regular Joanne, okay? I don't know what the expression is, but whatever the expression is, what about the regular people? Should we have an interest in where the origins of things come from? I want to read you from Maimonides' Laws of the Foundation of the Torah, chapter 2, where he's talking about the laws of loving God and of revering God. It says in the Shema, "V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha," you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. What does love mean? What brings one to love God? It says a few verses later in that portion, Et Hashem Elokecha tira. You shall revere the Lord your God. You shall be in awe of God. What does that mean? To be in awe or focused on God. What does that mean? So listen what Maimonides, he puts the two together. What does love mean? Love of God mean? And what does revere of God mean? And what does the origin of the universe mean, all in one lump sum in this law? I'm going to read you pretty much verbatim of what the Maimonides in the 11th century wrote. It is commanded to love and fear this glorious and awesome God. As it says in the Shema, love the Lord your God with all your heart. As it says a few verses later, revere the Lord your God. What is the path to love and fear him? That's the question that the Rambam is asking. And he answers, when a person contemplates God's wondrous and great deeds and creations and appreciates God's infinite wisdom that surpasses all in comparison, that person will immediately come to love, praise, and glorify God. So Maimonides is assuming if you want to love God, if you want to be aware of God, go look at God's wisdom. Go look at this universe, this creation, and it will come to bring you to love God and to fear God. Now, it's not just about God. I mean, well, maybe it is all just about God, but that's not a bad thing. Meaning, if God is infinite and you're attaching yourself to that appreciation of the infinite, theoretically, your love for the infinite could be infinite. So you are exploring the highest purpose that a human being can get, which is attaching oneself to love and reverence or respect, or however you want to translate that word. Now, on the same note as this, hi Joe, nice to see you. Okay, on the same note as that, Richard Feynman, who was a famous physicist, he said a very similar statement in a much easier way to understand. He says, physics isn't the most important thing. Love is. Okay. You would expect, a physicist, a Richard Feynman, he's one of the most famous physicist teachers in US history. I think he taught pretty much all the professors today of Harvard and Princeton and all these places. So he's very famous. There's videos of him online. And he's saying such a simple thing. Physics is not the most important thing. Love is. That's what Maimonides is saying. You attach yourself to the infinite wisdom of God by looking at the universe, not to become a smart person, not to become a professor, not to become a physicist, but to bring you to love. That's why you do it. Because if you look at this world, it should develop an expression of love. And on that note, I remember having an argument. I didn't have an argument. I was almost like a mediator between two friends of mine who were having an argument in Sea Point. And I remember the one friend was saying that when he looks at the sunset, it's a miracle of God. And the other friend was saying that when he looks at a sunset, all it is colors, and it's no better than being in traffic on the N1. It's just a visual sight in his mind. And what I want to suggest, what the Maimonides is saying, is that if you look enough at the world, if you look at enough sunsets, enough Hubble telescope pictures, enough, meteor showers, enough things, in the creation, underground, under the ocean, up above us, inside our bodies, inside the cell, for me, it's hard not to be brought to love this beautiful creation that we're in. And that's what I wanted to introduce this lecture, because it's a 7-part system here. 7 parts, why? Well, maybe there's 7 days of the week of creation. Maybe that's where we're going, okay? But number 1 is light. On the first day, light was created. And that's this I would say the general rubric that we are going to be exploring creation with this idea of Maimonides and the physicist Richard Feynman, which is physics is not the most important. The most important is love, but look at the physics and it should bring you to love. Okay, that's that. Next thing, and this is going to shock some people. Section 2. Is the Torah our guide to study the universe? Is the Torah, the Bible, our guide to study the universe? Well, should we go to yeshiva or should we go to astronomy class? So it's not such a simple question to answer. The first Rashi, I believe, on Chumash, it's definitely in the first line. Rashi asks an interesting, very famous question, and he says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Why does the Torah start off with creation of the universe? It should have started off with mitzvot. It should have started off with the first mitzvah to the Jewish people, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. This is your Rosh Chodesh. This is the calendar system, or however you interpret that. It's the Torah, according to Rashi, he's implying that the Torah is a book of Jewish law. It's a book of habits and rituals of how you live. It's not there to teach you that God is the creator of the universe. That's his question. Maimonides, without going into the Rashi's answer, just in his question, the Ramban, again, it's the first Ramban on his Chumash commentary, is very bothered by Rashi. And he says, what are you talking, Rashi, implying that it's not important to think that God is the creator of the universe? What could be more important than to start off the Torah with that setting that God is the creator? Of course he is. And the Ramban writes, it is the shoresh emunah. Those are his words that he uses. It is the root of our faith to believe that God created the universe, and that's why the Torah is talking like this. Why would you, Rashi, be asking such a question? So, who's right? Well, I don't know who's right, but I know what someone else said about this seemingly, argument. And I don't think Rashi really entertained that God is not the creator of the universe. But he implied that it's not so important to know that. The Rambam takes it to the next level. And this is the shocking thing, that when I read this the first time, I couldn't believe that Maimonides would entertain such a thought. But the Maimonides in book 2 of the Guide to the Perplexed, chapter 25, very famous Maimonides, he says, he's talking about literally how to understand the Torah. And he comes down to that if common knowledge, which I would call science, if science says something that is against the Torah understanding at the time, no problem. You just understand the Torah metaphorically or as an allegory. Where you can understand the Torah literally, you should. But if common knowledge says the opposite of what you think the Torah is saying on the literal level, you have to change your understanding of the Torah to make it an allegory. He even entertains and says, it's not that I believe that the Torah suggests that God is not the creator of the universe. If science would prove that God is not the creator of the universe, I would believe it. It's just that science has never proved that. But if it had to, I would entertain that, yes, this whole section in Bereshit is just an allegory, and maybe God is not the creator of the universe. So Maimonides is the one who entertains this idea that maybe the universe is, permanent, or it never began, it never ended, like the Aristotle and others were saying, that it is a constant thing, the universe, And Maimonides didn't believe that. He did believe that it was a creation, but he entertained the idea that you don't really have to believe that God created the universe, because you could read the Torah as a metaphor. That is that's a very harsh stance to take, because a lot, especially, today, Judaism, you tell that to Jewish people today, that God didn't create the universe, they wouldn't believe that Maimonides entertained such an idea. But he did in his Guide to the Perplexed. And Professor Yeshayahu Leibovitz, the professor from Hebrew University, he is a radical as well. And he took this idea that the Bible, the Torah, doesn't tell us anything about the origins of the universe. He says all the beginning, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all those chapters there are not telling. He is very strict. He says, and whoever thinks that it is telling you about the origin of the universe has no idea what the Torah is talking about. He's very strict in the way that he thinks. So then what is it talking about? He has this loose idea, which I don't fully understand, but he says it's talking, the whole Torah is just about the relationship between God and humans. And all that story is to just tell us about our relationship with God, but it's not to tell us anything about the origin of the universe. Don't think that it is. That would be very similar to Galileo. Galileo apparently said, and I don't know if he actually did say this, but the rumor is, or the tradition is that Galileo had said that the Bible teaches us how to go to heaven, whereas science teaches us how the heavens go. Now we know that science got Galileo in big trouble. Okay. Galileo got in big trouble with the church for saying such statements that the Bible doesn't tell us about the universe. But yes, the Galileo also had this idea that the Bible, don't read the Bible to tell us about how the origin of the earth happened. And that's the same as Yeshayahu Leibovitz. And even the Rambam is willing to concede that if modern science wasn't really couldn't relate to the verses of the Torah itself, you would have to read the Torah as an allegory. Now, there are many rabbis who argue with that and say, no, science is wrong if it's against the Torah. That's the very ultra-Orthodox approach, is that the science is wrong, the science is ever-changing, etc., etc., etc. But Maimonides didn't take it that way. He said, if something is true, if science is true, okay, it's true, and then you have to redo the Torah to read it as a non-literal manner. Now, the problem with all these people, of Professor Yeshayahu Leibovitz, and well done, John, well done, okay, is that the Torah does mention many chapters seemingly about how things work. In the beginning there was light, and the second day God separated the firmament above from the firmament below, and etc., etc. It's very hard to just say that those things are not really details that we should be interested in. So I'm taking more the approach of is that the Torah is there to teach us something about the origins of the universe. And maybe we should be looking into the Torah to try to see which sections of science we should be focusing on, because maybe the Torah does have what to say, and the science will prove the Torah, not disprove the Torah. That's where I'm coming from, and I'll try to do a little bit of justice to that now, but I just wanted you to make you aware that there are some other traditions out there that view it as different, that don't read into the Torah about science. Okay. Last thing about that, before I come to light, is in that section of Maimonides, the Guide to the Perplexed, he writes that it's a chova behechlet. Now, whoever knows Hebrew, behechlet means definite. It's a definite obligation to clarify the words of the Torah. This is Maimonides writing. And he says, why? Because the paths of interpretation are not closed to us. So I like that idea that Maimonides is saying it's there for you to explore. Not only will it bring you to love and fear of God when you look at the cosmos, but it's also given, you have that right as a human being living to explore. It's a chova bechle, to clarify the words of the Torah and to give your interpretation to it. So that's why, we're going to look at different options here of how to understand what is light, and everyone will try to figure it out for themselves as they read the Torah, what they think the truth is. Okay, what is our light? And God said, let there be light, and there was light, and God beheld, and it was good. And he separated the light from the darkness, and he called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And behold, it was evening, and it was the morning, day one. Okay, something like that. I might have got it mixed up, but that was just from my head. Okay, Chagiga, the Gemara 12a, brings an argument, this is in the Talmud, between Rabbi Elazar and the Chachamim, the sages, about what this light was that was created on day one. I don't want to say the first day, because that would imply that there was a chronology in day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm not sure yet if there's chronology. We'll explore that as we go on, whether there is a chronology. But let's just assume that it's early on. It says day 1, God said, let there be light, and there was light. Rabbi Elazar says, the original light was so strong that one could see from one end of the earth to the other under that light. But when God saw what humanity would produce, that they would kill each other at the time of the flood, and they would once more rebel at the Tower of Babylon, and all the other future things, because of course for God, past, present, and future are all happening at the same time. So when God saw that all this stuff is going to happen, God said, no. It's not I'm not going to let my original light be seen by wicked people. I'm going to hide it and keep it in another place. Olam haba, let's just call it. Or I think there in the Chagiga it says Latid Lavo. I'm going to keep it for a future time, where the tzaddikim, the righteous people, will be able to bask in that original light. But I'm not going to leave it that everyone gets to see that light. That's where the Zohar, as well as, the mystics, they come up with this idea. They call it the Or HaGanuz. The original light is a hidden light, even to the point of gematria. The Zohar points out that the gematria of the word light, or the numerical value, is the same as the numerical value of the word for mystery in Hebrew, which is Raz. So it seems that the Zohar and this Rebbe Lazar are going along the idea that the original light was some type of enlightenment or spirituality that all human beings were meant to have, but God changed his idea, and it was more that you now had to earn it. You had to earn that enlightenment. You don't just get it for free. And it wasn't meant to be that way. According to Rebbe Lazar, the original intent, seemingly, was that we were all meant to be enlightened. But when human beings decided to act differently, God said, oh, you want that blessing of enlightenment and spirituality? You got to earn it. So according to Rebbe Lazar, in summary, the first thing that was created, or when light was created, seemingly it was spirituality. Okay. The Chachamim argue, and they take the physical universe approach, and they say that the first thing that was created was not spirituality, rather it was the light of the sun. It was the light of the sun. And even though the Torah later says that the sun was only created on day 4, don't think that the sun was only created on day 4. No, the sun was created on the first day as well. So what does it mean that the sun was created on the 4th day, which is what the Torah says? Because the first day it says that light was created. On the 4th day it says that the sun was created. So the Chachamim have this idea that on the first day, the sun wasn't yet in its orbit. It was like an erratic orbit. And on day 4, the constellations, the moon, the suns, all that, those physics came into being and became contained in the physical world, universe that we have, which has gravity and has all these physical laws, that's when that got, made permanent, which was on day 4. But the original one was seemingly, the sun was floating around, giving light, but it wasn't only giving light to us, it was just wherever the sun went, in whichever orbit it was. What does that teach us? That teaches, at least my understanding of the Chachamim, is that teaches us that originally physics didn't exist the way that we knew it. Now, I've heard philosophers ask the question, when God created the universe, did he use physics to create the universe? Or did the universe already have physics in it? So at what stage did the physical laws that we know today get entrenched in the universe? Was it at the beginning of time, or was it certain laws came about at various stages along the way? So it seems to me that the Chachamim are assuming second option. They're assuming that on day 1, when the light was created, the physical orbits were not yet there. Maybe gravity didn't exist yet. And only later on day 4, when things got set in stone, so to speak, or got set into the physical laws, that's when orbits happened to be the way that we have them today. And the physical laws came about in a more staggered way in God's plan, as opposed to all at once. So just without even going further than the Talmud, those are quite deep ideas, that Rebbe Lazar is saying that the first thing, according to him, that was created was enlightenment and spirituality. And according to the Chachamim, the first thing that was created was a light, that the physical light that we know today, which is energies pretty much, and that later changes into a more entrenched physical universe that we have with orbits and stuff like that. Okay, now let's go into some of the commentaries on the Torah. Until now, that was the Talmud. Now let's go to some commentaries on the Torah. So the Malbim, who lived in the 1800s, he was a Ukrainian rabbi. He has something which I don't think is that plausible, but it's I just want to share it with you just in case, because the idea behind it still gets me curious. He says that on day 1, there was an intense light out there that God had created that burnt most things. Somehow the plants survived on day 2, and maybe the earth, but no humans or animals could exist with the original light that was created. And the sun was in that system, except the sun was a dark ball. There was no heat or light in that. I think they'd called it like a dead sun or a dark sun. And on day 4, God almost changed his mind, or God decided, whoa, I need to do something to be able to let animals and humans survive. The original light that I've created is too much. So I'm going to take that energy of the original light and I'm going to put it into that dark sun. And all that energy is going to go into that dark sun. And it's as if that dark sun is a protection for humans and animals against that original energy of the original light that would have killed us. That's the Malbim's version. So he says on day 1, the light was created, that existed in the whole of the universe. And it wasn't good enough for humans and animals to live because it was too strong. So God said, oh, let me look around. Oh, there's that big little dark ball. Let me throw all the energy of that original light into that thing. And now the sun contains that original light energy. It's almost, it's almost like God's shifting energy. And what I like about this, I don't think that the Malbim is correct, but what I like about this is it gets me thinking about how strong the energy is of the sun, how much energy God put into the universe, but just into that sun. They say it's 5,500 degrees Celsius on the surface air of the sun. They also say that the energy output of the sun is 4 million tons per second. If you think about our world, at the bottom, in the middle of our world, we've got molten lava. How on earth we have so much energy at the middle of our planet? That itself is an enigma. But when you think about how much more energy there is on the sun, it's really, really unbelievable. And that's why I like the Malbim's idea that energy needs to be protected, because the energy in this atmosphere the energy in this universe is so big that if it wasn't the way that it is, we would all just be destroyed in an instant. So that's maybe, according to the Malbim, the original thing was that God created light as a protection to the world to save life. Okay. Next person, Rav Yosef Kara, 11th century rabbi. He looks at the second day of the creation, and the second day of the creation says that God created a firmament, in Hebrew, a rakia, to separate the waters above and the waters below. He has this idea that the rakia is almost at the end of the universe, and the original light is beyond the rakia. So he says that the rakia of the second day blocks the light of the original first day of light, and therefore God needed more light within the rakia, meaning within the universe, because God had blocked out the original light by making a firmament on the second day. Therefore, God needed to create on the fourth day sun, moon, and stars, because we would have been left in the dark by the fact that the second day had a firmament to block out the original light. Now, he doesn't talk about it like protection, as the Malbim says, but he does seemingly suggest that there is a universe outside the universe, because the second day firmament separates what we call the universe from what's outside our universe, which he would call the original light. Now, this is where many conspiracy theories come up, because Rabbi Yosef Kara could easily be a proof for what people call today infinite universes, bubble universes, daughter universes, parallel universes. I don't have a lot of time to go into them, but I'll try just going to 3 of them. So there's this idea out there by physicists. These are from like famous universities and stuff. And I'm not saying that they're true, they're just theories. But one's called an infinite universe, which says space-time, like particles or molecules in space-time, which have space and they also exist within time. They're moving. And if they continue moving forever in universe, because they are physical, they will have an infinite amount of ways of setting up the atoms in different, what's the word I'm looking for? Different structures. And theoretically, you yourself are being replicated an infinite amount of times somewhere outside of this universe, because all molecules are moving. Eventually they will hit back to the same place, and you'll find yourself in another area outside this universe. Okay, that's the infinite universe idea. I don't want to go too much into it, but whoever understands that, that's what it says. A bubble universe, also the physicists talk about a bubble universe. They say that at the beginning of the Big Bang, there was a rapid expansion, and some places in the expansion expanded bigger than others in terms of the rate of time. And you ended up having, imagine things are like going bigger and bigger, and you end up having little pockets between the expanding universes that are hollow. Because it's like an inflating balloon. Imagine you're inflating lots of balloons together, and one balloon is squishing the other one, and you're left with these little spaces in between. So that idea says that in between those different areas, you're going to have different universes where the original energy ends up in different ways in different places of the universe. I'm not going to have time to go to parallel universes, but that idea of Rabbi Yosef Kara, that the rakia stops the original light, which is outside the universe, from the sun, which is in our universe, that lends itself to the idea that there's something outside of our universe. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to go on to, I've got another 2 points, but I'll have to leave that for another lecture, maybe sometime. other views. But the last one I'm going to go into is the Big Bang Theory itself. Does the Big Bang Theory rest well with the reading of the Torah? It's been argued by some it does. I mean, Joseph Silk, who's a cosmologist at the University of California, he quotes in his book, The Big Bang, and this is the first line in that book. He says, the Big Bang is the modern version of creation. Everyone from Stephen Hawking, Alan Good, Nobel laureate Paul Dirac, they all acknowledge that the original light of the Big Bang, that is a creation. They can't explain where that comes from, but they call it a creation. And that's even Stephen Hawking. He says the creation lies outside the scope of the known laws of physics. And the people who won a Nobel Prize in 1965 for first detecting the light, the first light of the Big Bang, they called it the Big Bang because they said it's a Big Bang of a light of explosion. It's an explosion of light. And we all study the Big Bang at school. I mean, I don't know if everyone here did when they were younger, but today everyone studies the Big Bang pretty much. And maybe that's what Yehi Or means. When God said, let there be light, maybe that was the original light of the Big Bang. And only billions of years later do we get our sun, which was on day 4, which is quite similar to what the Big Bang was saying. Originally, it was the sun wasn't there. It was a Big Bang of energy. And after that, you know, lots of things happened and things got created by whatever millions of things were going on. And that's an interesting idea, that maybe if you just read the Torah, maybe if we had just been reading the Torah, looking for where is the original light, where God said, let it be light, maybe we would have discovered that there was such a concept called the Big Bang a lot before 1965. Okay, but I'm not trying to say anything negative to scientists. I'm just saying that it's quite interesting that the Torah starts off with Yehi Or, and if you study modern science, it also starts off with Yehi Or. They just call it the Big Bang. Okay, so I find that very, very fascinating. And last thing to end off with, the word Or in Hebrew, the sound of it, if you go to Israelis, I mean, not just Israelis, anyone, if you go to watch a movie and it's a brilliant scene, everyone's going to go, oh my gosh, oh my God, okay? It's a very similar sound to that sound Or. So just the sound of that almost suggests like, wow, Or, I have to look up and go, there's something to be curious about. Wow, I'm looking at something interesting when you think or see light. And even in English, the word Or implies multiplicity. It's either this or it's that. I've got many, many options. So either way you go, this is a little bit in chess, but either way you go, whether you go the Hebrew word of Or where you go the English word of Or, it almost promotes you to be curious about whatever is going on around you. And that's why when you read the Torah and you say, Vayhi Or, and there was light, my mind gets me thinking about the Big Bang, which was only discovered in 1965, and the Torah wrote that 3,300 years ago, that it started with a light. It didn't call it an explosion of light, but it called it a light, as well as, you know, Maimonides' original thing from Yesodei HaTorah, which he says, if you want to love and appreciate God, look at the universe, because it is that curious. It is that interesting to just discover. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I certainly love it. So tonight, when all you romantic stargazers out there, go look at the universe, go see whichever planets and stars that you can think of, because it's all about, as Richard Feynman said, physics. The best part of physics is, what was the exact thing? The most important thing in life is not physics, it is love. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Next week, water. Okay, fantastic. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you all. Paulette.